Hello guys, this is Brandon Pierpont. I'm the founder and owner of Painter Marketing Pros. We are a full service digital marketing agency that works exclusively with painting contractors. I am extremely excited to bring you this mini series, Learn, Do, Grow Marketing for Painters, brought to you by Painter Marketing Pros in tandem with the PCA. It will be hosted on OneDrive. We will be rolling out monthly sessions from May until December of 2021, and then conducting a workshop for, I believe, up to 10 members. I believe is where the PCA is capping it. A mid-month workshop after we release the video and you guys all have a chance to look at it, where we really take a deeper dive into specifics regarding your specific companies and situations. So just so you're aware, the overall purpose of this series is to get you actionable insights and actionable knowledge that you can act on regarding your marketing, regarding positioning yourself as the authority in your local service area. And the goal is really to increase your revenue, and it's also to increase your profitability. So one of the other names that we had contemplated for the series was actually market for profit. And I'll be speaking about a lot of different ways that you can get those higher margin jobs that you're looking for, whether it might be house repaints or just higher quality customers that are a little bit fewer in the tire kicking category. We'll be talking about how to get that kind of ideal customer and ways to look at a customer avatar and what that means and how to build that. And really, ultimately, how to establish yourself as the authority in your local service area. Ultimately, your goal is to be the 100-pound gorilla wherever you operate, right? You want to be sort of the de facto #1 painter in your area, and through being that #1 authority in your local service area, you'll ultimately get those higher quality customers that are less price conscious. You'll be able to get those higher margin jobs and ultimately get more of those jobs with more high quality customers and increase your revenue, profitability, and ultimately accomplish your goals. We'll also be diving into goal setting, because one of the most important aspects of succeeding is establishing clear and concrete goals and writing them down. And I think that's overlooked by a lot of entrepreneurs. And so we'll be touching on that, the importance of being concrete about what you want to accomplish and kind of how that fits into all of this. So this very first series, this will be the first of 8, is called Your 2021 Internet Marketing Plan, How to Maximize Your Lead Flow in 2021. Now obviously it is not the beginning of the year anymore, but we're still rolling out with this one first because this looks at marketing really from a bird's eye view, right? What are all the different components that you have in place currently? What are you potentially lacking? Where could you maybe improve? Do you have the KPIs? Are you measuring the results of all the different marketing methodologies that you're currently running? Where's the room for improvement? Where's the room for expansion? Are you over-investing and not seeing the return? Are you under-investing and not really sure where to invest necessarily? So this is really going to be approaching things from a bird's eye view. It'll obviously be focused primarily on the latter half of 2021, since we're already into April, May, June, whenever you're watching this webinar. But the concepts are still applicable. The concepts are very much applicable and relevant, and it's a great one to kick this series off with. So I'm very excited to be working with you guys, very excited about the workshops, about coordinating with you guys individually, diving into your specific company issues, specific goals, websites, etc. So please do try to be active, even though this will be a video recording that you're watching. Try to engage, right? Like, try to engage as though it is live. And obviously, if you can come to the workshop, if you have already engaged previously, then you'll have thought this stuff through far more, and we can go into a great deal more depth regarding your company and kind of your goals and how you're going to get there. So what we'll cover during this initial webinar video is we're going to set goals for the remainder of 2021. So how many leads do you need per month to hit your revenue target? And there are a few different things that go into that number, and we'll be discussing all of those. The next thing we're going to cover is the 3 fundamentals of marketing success. So again, kind of that bird's eye view, but really understanding marketing from an overarching perspective, how does it work? And this will kind of make more sense when we get there, but it involves your messaging, it involves your target market, and then your media. How are you kind of advertising, or how are you making your presence known? How are you building yourself as that authority in their eyes? We will discuss how to optimize your website for conversion in 2020, 2021 and beyond. So the website ultimately is your hub. It's ultimately where anyone who is interested in you, who wants to check you out, is going to go to find out more information about your company. And ultimately they're waiting, kind of deciding whether they want to do business with you and how much they trust you via the trust signals and everything else that they're getting from your website. So we'll go into that in some fair depth. We're also going to touch on the big picture of all the online marketing channels that you should be tapping into now to maximize your lead flow online. So again, coming back to that holistic approach to marketing, there are a lot of different avenues, and when you kind of start to look at all of it, it can become very overwhelming. But you don't want to just shut down or just decide, well, I'm just going to do one avenue or no avenue. I'm strictly going to do referrals. Referrals are obviously fantastic. It's really the ideal customer, I think, is a referral or a repeat business, potentially even better. But you're capped with growth with that kind of growth, right? You need to have some mechanism for obtaining new customers on a consistent and efficient basis. So we'll be discussing all the different mechanisms that you can implement and kind of how they play into each other and work with each other. We will also be talking about the latest trends that you need to focus on in 2021. So some of you guys are pretty familiar with digital marketing. You've maybe run some ads yourself, whether that's pay-per-click, Facebook ads, maybe you've even created your own website. You could have used a website builder like Wix or GoDaddy. You could have potentially have some web development chops and done it in WordPress or some other method. And then some of you guys really don't kind of have any real experience with this stuff and really understand painting very well and how to run that business well, but don't necessarily know how to market and kind of all the technology and thought that goes with that. So marketing is constantly changing. Digital marketing changes quickly. We're playing in Google Sandbox, Facebook Sandbox, online. Everything is constantly changing. So we'll be discussing the most recent trends and kind of what you need to know about what's going on currently. And then ultimately, we'll develop a custom action plan based on where you are now and what you now need to do, right, to obtain your goals. And this is where that workshop, if you are one of the 10 or so companies that will end up participating, this is where we can also take a deeper dive. But even if you're not present in that workshop, maybe you're watching this after the workshop or filled up, you can still take what we're doing here and you can apply it yourself. So dial in, close the other tabs, close everything that you have, close your Facebook, put your phone down. Even if you're watching this and it's not going to be a real interactive webinar, pretend that it is, because you're going to get so much more out of it than if you kind of watch it distracted. Otherwise, what's the point? So you can download the course materials from this link. There are a couple different things that we're going to go through. And again, kind of that interactivity. This isn't just a lecture where you guys just watch and kind of get filled with theory. And ultimately, this whole series that we're creating, the Learn, Do, Grow, is about first, number one, you learn, right? I convey the information and the knowledge to you and kind of the rationale behind it, and you understand, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then you do it. So I'm giving it to you guys sort of in bite-sized pieces and stuff that's very applicable even if you don't have any kind of marketing or specifically digital marketing background. These are still steps that you can implement yourself, right? And then grow is going to be the result of all of that. So if you put in the work to learn it, you put in the work to do it, ultimately you're going to see the results in the growth of your business and achieving the goals that you're trying to achieve. So make sure you download these course materials. We have a workbook there for you, pretty thorough workbook, in addition to a few other resources that we're going to be running through that will be very helpful. All right, so this is what I call the digital dominance method for painters. So essentially, for the maximum flow of leads, calls, and profitability in your painting business, you need to be hitting things. Again, this is kind of that bird's eye view. You need to be hitting marketing from various perspectives, right? And it all starts with your website. Again, your website is your hub. Your website's where people ultimately are going to end up. Even if their friend told them about you, there's a good chance that they're going to go check out your website. If they saw a Facebook ad or Google ad or there could be dozens of ways that they end up on your website, but ultimately, most of your prospects who are considering your services are going to end up on your website. So you want to make sure that you have a strong foundation with strong copy that speaks to your target market. You want to make sure you have conversion elements. We'll get into all of this, on-page optimization, and then monthly blogging is kind of ongoing. I'm not going to take too deep a dive there. Again, if you come to the workshop, we can go into a much deeper dive and kind of go on a case-by-case basis, and we will touch on this a bit more moving forward. Second is SEO, so this is search engine optimization. So this is being at the top for Google, Bing, Yahoo. Google is really primarily the main search engine that you want to optimize for, and really Bing and Yahoo follow their lead. So if you're optimized for Google, you're also going to do well for Bing and Yahoo, and you want to show up at the top. And there are a lot of different things that go into that in terms of how your website's built, kind of the coding behind it, and then some off-page elements as well in terms of building the trust authority, and et cetera. Number 3 is review management. So these are in order. This is kind of a bird's eye view. It's not everything in marketing, but these are the most important components, and it's going in the order of importance. Number 3 is your review management. So you need to be proactively engaging satisfied customers and asking for those 5-star reviews. Nothing is more important than showcasing your 5-star reviews for local service companies, because ultimately that's what people care about. They want to know that a bunch of other people near them used you and they're happy. And ultimately that's how referrals work, that's how repeat business works. It ultimately comes back to them trusting you and then ultimately booking you. Pay per click, so this is essentially Google ads. You can also do Bing ads. So this is a way to accelerate your business, because some of this other stuff is a little bit longer term growth. The website, the SEO, kind of building up those reviews, making sure that you're on top of responding to any negative reviews, making sure that you're publicly addressing them, making sure you made it right with the customer for whatever may have happened or in their mind happened, making sure that you're making that right. That is all longer term, building that brand, building that authority, and ultimately becoming the 100-pound gorilla. The pay-per-click is how you can start to grow your business faster. That's something where you construct the exact advertisements, the exact landing pages, copy the media that's going to resonate with your audience, and you test it. You use several different tests, and then as you kind of find the copy and imagery and landing page, etc., that works the best, then it's a lever that you can kind of scale up and down, right? Depending on how much you want to spend and how much business you can handle, really. 5 is retargeting. So if you're doing any kind of advertising, whether it's Facebook ads, Google ads, pay-per-click, Bing, etc., you need to be retargeting. And this is just people who have been on your website or people who have been on your landing pages. It's making sure that you kind of follow them around the internet. And I'm sure that you guys have visited websites, and then all of a sudden you're seeing those websites advertised to you on Facebook. You're seeing there's a Google banner there, right? You're searching something unrelated, and there's this Google banner for this maybe outdoor tent or whatever you were looking at. You were just on their website. So that's retargeting. And the reason you want to do that is because that's a warm audience. Someone who came to your website, who clicked on your pay-per-click campaign but maybe didn't convert, went to your landing page. That's somebody who's demonstrated a clear interest. And there's a very high probability, much, much higher than for just some random cold person on the internet who might match your demographics, that warm audience is going to convert. So retargeting needs to be a component. Paid directories, this is really something I would view as a little more supplementary. It's not a primary mechanism. I think there's definitely a place for it. I view it kind of as a fallback option if some of the other things are taking a little while to click in and kind of work. Things like Angie's List, Home Advisor, Yelp, Thumbtack, those kinds of sort of paid directories or pay per lead sites. There is a place for them, though I don't recommend them to be a primary source of your leads. So you get a lot of tire kickers and some other things sometimes. Repeat and referral, so email marketing, social media. This is about staying in front of customers that you've served. Make sure that you have some sort of CRM, customer relationship management software, that's sending out, whether it's weekly or monthly emails, with different offers or different updates, or hey, did you know, fall is a great time of year to XYZ, right? And just kind of staying in front of those customers. Hey, did you know we're offering a $500 referral bonus, or 10% off your next paint job if you refer someone, etc. Or we have a special coupon going on this month, end of year sale. And that's how you can really, if you're doing a great job and you're a great company, then odds are that you already have a lot of repeat referral business. And that's how a lot of you have grown to where you're at currently. But it doesn't mean that you couldn't have more repeat and referral business if you don't sort of have these touch points to kind of stay in front of the people. And if someone used you 3 years ago, let's say, and they're on your email marketing list and they see it, and well, they know their neighbors was just talking to them about how they need their house repainted. Well, oh yeah, I just saw it. I just got an email from Bob's Painters, and yeah, I used him 3 years ago, and he was fantastic. I think you should give him a call. So essentially, just staying top of mind, right? And then ultimately, social ads, so Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. It's a different form of advertising, but it's still extremely effective. It's essentially being in front of where your prospects hang out. People hang out on Facebook. The statistics, I'm not sure how many of you guys have kind of looked at the statistics. I think there are 1.7 billion people on Facebook, and 70% of them go on every day. There's some really insane statistics regarding Facebook usage. So definitely don't want to sleep on that. So think, what's the hardest part about marketing your painting business online? And I know this is a recorded video, so you can't tell me live, right? But think about it. Take a second, and maybe even pause this video. Take maybe a couple minutes, and think what's kind of the hardest part. If you've tried it in the past, if you haven't tried it, then you haven't tried it, so you don't necessarily really know what the hardest part about marketing your business online is. But if you have done it, maybe you've run pay-per-click ads and you realize that you lost way more money than you thought you were going to, or the leads that were coming in weren't converting, or something wasn't going right, then maybe that's it. If you run Facebook ads, could have a similar issue. If you put up a website but no one can find you online, whatever it is, kind of think through that, because as you sort of engage. Again, even if you're by yourself, if you engage in this dialogue, if you engage in these exercises that I'm going to be giving you guys, then it will help a lot. Be sure that you download the workbook that I'm giving you, because we're going to be running through some of that stuff. And if it seems like we didn't cover any of it, make sure you cover it yourself. Because again, you're going to get out of this series and out of this webinar and topic in particular what you put into it, right? So get out what you put in. So why? Why does this stuff matter? So there's so many options regarding marketing. It can seem overwhelming. It is a constantly evolving and changing landscape. And it can, you have people calling you, SEO people or web developers or Facebook ad people, or people calling you and promising they're going to give you all these leads and they're going to convert. And ultimately, you end up just sort of shutting down. Right? I mean, that's kind of what happens. I previously ran an auto detail business, and I ultimately decided to learn how to do this stuff myself to grow the business. I decided I'm gonna learn how to run the ads, and I'm gonna learn how to build a site that converts and that attracts people who are searching for things in Google that I'm marketing for. So, for example, auto detailing near me, best auto detailing company in Tampa, etc. I wanted to show up at the top for this, so I learned that myself. But people would be barraging me about, they're going to get me X, Y, or Z, and it only costs this much money, and I kind of shut down. And so my approach was ultimately just to learn it all myself, and then I took a completely different career direction here. And ultimately, after I sold that business, I ended up doing marketing full time. But it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming, and that's where hopefully some of this starts to clarify some of that, and making sure that you are making good decisions with your marketing. It's not one of those things, if you just throw a bunch of money at it, it'll work. That's, that's, some people think, oh, the issue is just that I didn't spend more money. A lot of times it could be that issue, but unless you have things dialed in, you really shouldn't be throwing a bunch of money into a black hole. And you should absolutely have your KPIs. You should be knowing what your return is on that investment. So, there's SEO, there's pay-per-click, there's websites, there's social media marketing. You can pay companies to create content for you and content marketing. And, there's so many different ways to market, but ultimately you need to find a most efficient way. You need to have the right order of doing it, and ultimately it does need to be holistic, but it needs to be holistic and measured. What gets measured gets done. and what gets measured gets improved. So ultimately, you need to have measurements in place so that you know what your KPIs are. You put X amount of dollars into Google, and you receive this many leads, and out of those many leads, 60% converted, and so you made this much revenue, and off of those jobs, right, you made this much profit because your profit margin was Y, and you were marketing for these kinds of jobs. Those are the kind of KPIs that you need to have dialed in to understand whether your marketing is working and how to make it better. Regarding investments in marketing, I think a lot of companies overinvest. So some sort of ballpark numbers for service-based businesses, you really should be spending, if you're looking to grow. So I'm focused here on companies that are looking to grow, right? The companies that are fairly well established, but ultimately they're in that I want to scale. Maybe I'm at 500,000, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, wherever you might be. But you want to get bigger. Maybe you want to get twice as big or 3 times as big, or whatever your specific goal is. That's your goal, because there are also some companies that they have things they've decided it's worked this well for X number of years, and they have a lot of repeat or referral business, and they're comfortable with that. Well, in that case, this series is probably not for you. So regarding investment in marketing, again, throwing more dollars at it doesn't solve the problem. I don't really think there's anything in life where if you just throw money at it, it solves it. It doesn't work that way, for better or for worse. I guess if you don't have a lot of money, it's a relief. If you have a lot of money, it's not really a relief. You need to be calculated. You need to make sure that you're getting some return. And one of the common stories for painters is, well, I got called up by this company, and they kind of promised me all these results, and they sounded really smooth, right? And so I booked a package with them, and I signed up for a year with them, and ultimately we were dissatisfied. The communication wasn't there, the demonstration of value wasn't there, and kind of the crazy thing is, everyone's experience is different, but you actually might have gotten good results, and maybe just the communication wasn't there, or quite possibly you didn't get good results, and you got a negative ROI where you spent more money than ultimately you made in revenue and in profit. Or maybe you did get a positive ROI, but really it should have been higher, right? You got 1.5 times for your ROI, and you were really thinking you were going to get 3 times or 5 times or something like that, right? Every dollar you put into marketing, you're getting 5 out. So it's all about measuring it and keeping on top of it, and having that kind of holistic strategy. Another way to sort of view marketing, touching on the fact that there are so many different avenues to market, is that I view it kind of like fishing lines, right? Like if you're going fishing, there's an old story. I kind of doubt it's true. It's kind of a parable, I guess. But there was a tourist, and he took his fishing line. He went out to the beach, and threw the fishing line out there, and he's going fishing. And a local then came by, and he threw out 10 fishing lines, and kind of anchored each one in the sand, threw out the next one, anchored it in the sand. And the tourist asked him, "Why are you throwing out so many fishing lines?" And he said, "Well, they don't all bite at the same time. If I throw 10 out, then I'm far more likely to catch enough fish to feed my family. My family won't starve. And if I catch more than I need, then I can sell it and have more money for my family." It's a fairly straightforward, obvious example, but I think it's pretty critical, and I think it's something we miss a lot of times. We think, well, I'm already running a door flyer campaign, or a mail campaign, or I'm running Facebook ads. That should work. You don't kind of want to put all your eggs in one basket. You want to be strategic, because again, throwing a bunch of money in every which direction isn't going to solve the problem either. You need to have a calculated approach where you're measuring your ROI and your KPIs, and you know what's going on. You're working it in the right way, right, with the right messaging to the right market, using the right media. But you don't want to underinvest. You don't want to just think you have one or two kind of client acquisition methods and you're going to double or triple or quadruple your business, whatever your goal may be. So you want to have a clear plan regarding where you're trying to go and how you're going to get there. And you want to make sure that throughout that process that you're measuring. Right? So the opportunity is have your clear plan with goals, targets, and KPIs. So that's why we're kind of taking this 2021, the sort of rest of 2021 overarching plan, this marketing plan, kind of looking at all the options. And again, download the workbook if you haven't yet. And we're going to go through some of these exercises together. And then in the workshop, we'll take a deeper dive, answer specific questions, and kind of go a lot deeper with some of you guys. And the goal ultimately is to generate enough leads to hit your targets and keep your vans or your trucks or whatever you're using, typically using cargo vans, but to keep them running, right? To not have painters idle. And I know, I do want to address another issue too. I know a big concern, and there's, I think, a few different reasons that this is the case, is right now it's somewhat difficult to find good help. Right? It's a pain point that a lot of painters are struggling with. You can't find good employees. They want to be paid maybe excessive amounts. And so in return, you're actually having kind of the opposite problem right now, where you can't, you can't accomplish all the work that you have. There's another way to look at that. So that can be solved through margin. So whatever margin you're getting on your job, and I'll use sort of a basic example here that won't be applicable to some of you. But let's say a lot of your work is kind of new construction, right? Well, obviously that's not going to be the highest margin job. So if you have tons and tons of new construction work that you're doing, and you only have so many competent, loyal employees that, painters that are staying with you, well, you could solve that if you then branded yourself and almost opened almost a new division, is a way to kind of look at it, where you're focused on residential repaints, right? Or something like that. Again, this is a fairly straightforward example. But there are a lot of ways to look at this and kind of slice and dice this to ultimately, okay, well now my margins have improved pretty substantially, and I can actually afford to pay more, and all of a sudden now there are more employees that are willing to work for me, right? So I think the idea, and it is real, I actually just read an article, which is insane to me, quite honestly, but McDonald's is paying, I believe McDonald's is paying people $50. I didn't read the whole article, but $50 to apply, just to apply to work at McDonald's. They'll pay you $50. I don't know all the specifics, but I mean, think about it. That's insane, right? That's a pretty kind of crazy situation there. But I think it's really demonstrative of the lack of good work that's out there right now. I mean, McDonald's is struggling to find enough employees to work at McDonald's. So of course, painting companies where the requirements are going to be a bit more stringent are also going to struggle. But my point is, don't let that be a reason that you don't grow your business. Don't say, well, there weren't enough employees, so I couldn't get to my revenue targets. There are ways to get there, and a lot of it's by making higher margins on your jobs. That opens up a lot of doors. So you want to make sure that you're having a great return on your investment with your marketing. And ultimately, your goal is to maximize your lead flow and hit your sales goals for the rest of 2021. So the first step here is set clear goals, right? So what are your goals for 2021? So I really like self-development books and kind of audio and webinars and things like that. And there's a guru, some of you will know him by the name of Brian Tracy, and he has a lot of great stuff. But one of his quotes that I find really resonates with me is success is goals and all else is commentary. So that means when you're kind of focused, there's a lot of minutia to focus about when you're kind of running a business, and there's always kind of reasons to put it off, things that you know that you need to do or should do. But ultimately, you need to establish clear goals, and you need to have a clear plan working toward those goals. All the other stuff that you're doing, there's another quote by John Wooden, he's a legendary basketball coach, but don't mistake activity for achievement. So we can all be very busy, very, very involved, kind of putting out fires, running operations, but that's not growing the business. You need to take time to make sure you're working on your business and establishing those goals and the clear plan to get there, and making sure you have milestones in place, making sure you're taking the time to stop and measure your progress, figure out whether things are going in the direction they should be or whether something maybe needs to change. And don't kind of mistake, well, you're busy all the time, so the business is going as well as it can. And it's kind of like a sailboat. If you don't have clear goals and you don't have a clear plan, you're essentially out to sea, and you're going to get blown sort of whatever direction you get blown. Right? Maybe the fires are coming up, or this or that's happening. But once you've set those clear goals, whether it's at the end of for the second half of 2021, I want to make $1 million for the final 6 months, and so I need to make 180,000 or so every month. Whatever your goals are, they need to be clear and have a plan, and then all of a sudden you'll find that they get done. Again, I don't fully understand it, but I think as humans we have limited focus, limited ability to kind of concentrate, and can only concentrate really on one thing at a time. And when you have written goals that you've built a plan around, those goals tend to come to fruition. You tend to achieve them way more than if you haven't written them down. So to kind of back that up, there's a Harvard study. It was a 1979 interview of Harvard grads. 84% of them had no specific goals. They said, they're asked, do you have goals? Well, no, not specifically. 13%, they probably said, I want to succeed or do well or have a family or support my family or whatnot. 13% had goals, but they didn't write them down, okay? And then 3% had clear written goals along with the plan to accomplish those goals. So, maybe by age 40, I want to be making over $1 million a year, and here are the steps I'm going to take to get there, right? These are Harvard grads. These are some of the smartest, kind of people in the world with the most opportunity, and so the results were that 13% of the class who had the goals were earning on average twice as much as the 84% who had no goals at all. And then even more striking is that the 3% who had clear written goals were earning on average 10 times what the other 97% were earning. 10 times. Because they took the time and they had the kind of personality write down their goal and then create a plan to get there. 10 times more successful than the other Harvard grads. That is astounding. So at a minimum for your goals, you need to be setting a 1-year goal, quarterly goals, and then monthly goals. And then you have to have a stopping point at the beginning of each year, of each quarter, of each month, beginning or end, or however you want to do it, where you reflect how well did I accomplish my goal. Okay, my goal was 183,000 in July. I made, let's say 165,000. Why didn't I make 183? What had I factored in that went differently, and how can I make up that difference now in August? So this is an exercise I want you guys to do. Again, pause the video, take the time, lean into this, lean into these exercises, because ultimately it's how you're going to get the benefit here. What are your goals for 2021 total, or for the remainder of 2021? What is your revenue target? And how much is that monthly? So we'll just look at it for the full year, and you guys can kind of break it down into the remainder for the 7 months. But how many calls will that require? And then what is your average transaction value? So what is your revenue target? And if you don't want to kind of look at it yearly, you can kind of, I would say, look at it yearly. So let's say it's, it's 2 million. Let's see what 2 million would be. Say your revenue target's 2 million for a year. Okay. Then that means that monthly divided by 12, you need to be making 167,000 a month, right? So that's kind of the exercise. And then how many calls will that require? So how many calls that convert, right? Like how many leads do you need based on your average transaction value to get that? So for an example, if your revenue target is 2 million, then you need 167,000 monthly. Let's say your average transaction values kind of vary considerably, depending on whether you're residential or commercial, and kind of where you work within each of those industries. But let's say that it's 5,000, just to throw out an easy number for your average transaction value. Then how many closed calls will that require per month? It requires 33 jobs per month. So that's how the math works. And then if you want to get into leads, because that's closed calls, that doesn't solve it, because there are some leads that are going to come through that you don't close. So that's only half the information that we need. What is your average conversion rate from caller to booked call? And if you don't know this, then that's a problem for your growth. If you say, well, I think I think about it, we convert most of the people who call us, I think we usually get them. That's a problem. You need to have some mechanisms in place, because that's one of your key KPIs, key performance indicators, to track your conversion rate on your leads. Then you divide your call target, your close call target, by your conversion rate. So if your average conversion rate, let's say, is 55%, then you would divide that close call target, so 37 closed calls, divided by the 0.55, the 55%, means that you would need 67 leads per month. So take a minute, pause this. I'm going to keep moving because this is a video. So pause it and do the exercise, because then you have numbers. Now you sort of have numbers, and if you don't know some of these numbers, well, now you know what you don't know. Now you know, because you need to know all of these numbers. So if you don't know them, then now you have some more homework, right? And I've supplied a worksheet to you guys too that you can use. So it should have been in that initial link of things you can download. You can also use this link here on this slide, and it's a worksheet to an Excel sheet, a Google Sheets, and you can ultimately use it to calculate these numbers for you. It might be a little bit easier than using a calculator. Okay, so ultimately this is going to get us to what is your goal for the remainder of 2021, and how many leads do you need monthly to get there. Now the fundamentals, the marketing fundamentals. So these are the 3 fundamentals that I promised we'd discuss. So you have your market. That's the most important. That's sort of the basis for all of this. Who is your market? Who is your customer avatar? And this is not just, well, we serve anyone. A lot of people want to say we serve everyone. Who is your perfect customer? Who's your best customer? If everyone could be like this one customer, who is that person, right? And then once you have your market, then you establish your message. Because now you know your customer. Now you know Joe Jones. Now you know Kaylee Smith. Now you know who you're selling to. You know what they value. You know who they are. But now you can craft messaging that resonates with them, right? And then media, after you have your market, your who, your message, your what, well, then you need your media, your how. How are you going to reach them? And this is where all the different marketing methodologies come into play, right? This is where the SEO, this is where the Google ads, the pay-per-click, the email marketing campaigns, the social media, the content generation, maybe video marketing, YouTube ads, could be direct mail, etc. This is where all that comes into play. So update your marketing messaging. Who is your ideal customer avatar? So here's an example of kind of the kinds of things you would want to think. And if you've not done this exercise before, this is weird. I will tell you, the first time I did it, I thought it was really weird, and I thought some of the stuff wasn't relevant. But it is. The more that you understand your customer, the better you know them, even details that don't seem like they would be relevant, the better you're going to connect with them. And ultimately, the higher your conversion rates are going to be, the more successful your advertising is going to be, and just general positioning. So it's absolutely, go through this exercise. We have it for you in the workbook. Make sure you take the time to do this. So in this example, who is your ideal customer avatar? Demographics, you can start with there. It's kind of the most basic things. That homeowner, over 35 years old, typically female, occasionally male, married with 2 to 3 kids, head of household, 85,000 plus in annual household income. You do want them generally to be a little more affluent. 1 second. Family-oriented, reliable, easily frustrated, not handy, likes gardening, crafts, and arts, lives in the suburbs, kind of an upper middle class neighborhood generally, and takes an interest in her community. Right? Then you want to kind of move to pains and the frustration. So maybe not satisfied with the house color or the paint quality. Maybe it's chipping. Maybe they just purchased the house and want to remodel it. Maybe they feel it's dated. Whatever the reason. Can't find a painting company that she trusts. She wants the house to look better. Too busy to deal with it herself. She doesn't want to paint it. Her husband is at work. He's not going to paint it. Not going to take the time to kind of learn and do it the right way. Could potentially be worried about the health for the family if maybe it's an older house, or some of the paint's chipping or whatnot. And then a lot of times, painting is really more of a want than a need. This isn't the same as plumbing or something, or electrician, where really they're being called when there's an emergency. So painting is oftentimes a want. And so a lot of times it's going to come down to ego. It's going to come down to kind of maybe being embarrassed by the house appearance, or maybe wanting to impress family or friends or neighbors or whatnot. So you guys are kind of the heroes a lot of times to your customers' egos. And then fears and implications. So some common fears in the painting industry that we found, kind of being ripped off or overcharged, paying too much for something that they could have gotten from another company elsewhere, right, for the same quality. So again, kind of being ripped off, having the home damaged, by faulty workmanship, by maybe painters who came in and weren't as attentive to details they should have been, weren't as careful with things, maybe broke things, maybe made kind of a mess and didn't clean it up. Being inconvenienced, trying to coordinate with the painting company, some sort of disaster is created in the house. The bill ends up maybe being higher, maybe the pricing wasn't as straightforward or transparent as they expected, and then ultimately they're embarrassed in front of their friends or family because they chose a company that did a bad job, right? Again, the ego is a very strong driving factor for people. And then goals and desires, make the house look good, having a well-kept home that they're proud of, having the issue behind them. Technically they could, usually, it depends on if you guys are painting, redoing cathedrals or something, it's a bit different, but people can technically paint their own house. So if, again, in this example, we're focused on a residential painter specifically. They want to get it done, and they want someone else to handle it for them and have the issue behind them. Having more income, money, and wealth, this is stuff that they want in their life, not from you guys, right? Live in a nicer, more luxurious house, drive a nicer car, their kids are healthy and successful and happy, they spend more time with their family, travel and have fun with their family, and ultimately they have the respect and approval of their friends, their family, their neighbors, their relatives, and that ego kind of desire is fed, and they have the peace of mind that they're looking for. And I really like this quote. If you can see Joe Jones through Joe Jones' eyes, then you can sell what Joe Jones buys. Right? It's nice, kind of almost sounds like a riddle, but it comes down to understanding your customer, and once you understand them, like really understand them, you have this customer avatar dialed in. A lot of times you'll want to create probably 3 to 5 customer avatars. Then you can craft a messaging that resonates to your customer, and you can reach them where they are, because whether they're hanging out on Facebook, whether they're going to Google, your services if they need them, etc. You can really target them much more effectively at that point. So that is the who. Next is the what, right? So what is your message? Now that you know who you're targeting, what is your message? So why should someone choose to do business with you versus the competition? They Googled Painter San Antonio, and they had all these different options. They saw 10 options right away in front of them. Why would they choose you? What is different about your company? And then what benefits do you offer that your target customer avatar will resonate with? So again, kind of expanding on it, what is unique to you that makes you the clear winner? Why are you, and there's some other stuff that goes into this, in terms of showing up number one on Google and making sure that you're kind of omnipresent in their eyes, but let's assume that that's not the case, that you're not the 100-pound gorilla yet, and this is still important when you are, but why would they choose you if you're just one of several options and they don't know any of you, don't have any referrals? So some messaging that we've found that works, we offer professional service, we use the highest quality materials, and we really care for your home and business belongings, right? So a lot of it's in kind of advertising the amount of care that you take, protecting the belongings, protecting the home or business, making sure there's no splash paint that doesn't get cleaned up, nothing like that. Upfront pricing or satisfaction guaranteed, and then showing that you're a trusted painter. And a lot of this comes down to reviews and comes down to optimizing the website the right way. But trustworthy painters, trusted painters, experience, things like that. People want to work with painters that they trust. It's a big deal to hire a painter, because ultimately if they're unsatisfied with the job, that's something they're going to have to look at every single day, and they're going to have to ultimately get it redone. So some of the things that you can say on your end through your messaging, whether that's your website, your email marketing, Facebook ads, etc., you want to make it holistic, but you offer professional service with reliable and courteous painters. right? So you're professional, you're reliable, you're going to show up when you say you're going to show up, you're going to complete the job by the time you say you're going to complete the job, and you're courteous. You're not cursing. They don't have to be worried if their kids are around you, or there's nothing like that going on. You guys are a professional, upscale service, right? Highest quality materials. It's another way to differentiate yourself. You guys use highest quality paint, and this is where some of the blogging can come into play, sort of blogging about different kinds of paints and damage that low quality paint can kind of cause long term, or maybe even health hazards. Money saving offers. Even if your customer's not a tire kicker, everyone likes to at least feel like they're saving money. Clean cut and uniform professional painters. We'll leave your home or business cleaner than we found it. And then depending on your model, or can't always necessarily offer this, but great service satisfaction guarantee. Something along those lines goes a long way, because it basically de-risks the situation for your prospect. So that's your message. So now that you have your customer avatar and you have your message, now we can discuss your media. So how are you going to reach them? And the number one most important part of your media is your website. Your website is your hub. Your website's where everyone's coming. Whether they found you on social media, whether they found you through a Google ad, whether their friend told them about you. There are many, many ways that they can find you, but many of those prospects are going to end up on your website. So you need to make sure that your website is built to convert. And so some of the things that are most important with your website converting is, does it speak to your target avatar? The messaging, is it set up? Does it speak to her fears, her frustrations? Does it demonstrate a clear message about why she should choose you? Does it have authentic images of your team on the homepage and throughout the website? Do you have your team in uniform? Do you have the owner on the front page? So that she feels that you're kind of taking responsibility for your work, and kind of knows you, right? You want to personalize your business. People like to do business with people, and you don't want just the name. You want to show who's behind the name, who's behind the curtain. Does it include video elements? We found video to be very, very helpful in increasing conversions. Having videos, whether that's of your team kind of doing painting, but really works well if you can have a video of the owner kind of speaking to the ideology of the company, how they're founded, how they run their business. If you have any sort of guarantees, speaking directly to her. And again, coming back to that messaging, if you know her and if you know what she likes, what she cares about, then you can really, really speak to her, right? Having a website welcome video. Again, this is where I would recommend that the owner do that. Really personify the business. Videos for each of your services, so that there's no sort of, if you're interior painting or exterior painting or cabinetry painting, or whatever kind of services you're offering, show kind of a video description of it, right? Kind of walk through, show the employees in uniform conducting it, and now there's way more trust. Now they feel they're on board. You've brought them on board. It's not any kind of black box. Well, yeah, you guys paint the inside of my house, big deal. So will every other company. Well, I watched this video, and these are the precautions that you guys take. You guys have a 10-step, check process to make sure that you're before you even start painting, to make sure that everything's in order and make sure no belongings are gonna be harmed, and you can really differentiate yourself with these videos. And then a video kind of explaining your key differentiators, so your USP, your unique selling point. What makes you so much better? Does your website showcase your online reviews more prominently on the homepage with a tool like Bird Eye or ReviewBuzz? There's different pieces of software where you can showcase those reviews and they're kind of live, so you can kind of keep adding as you get new 5-star reviews, more and more of those. And that's something I can discuss a lot in depth too in the workshop. Does it make it easy for them to take action, get in contact with your company? You want to have clear calls to action. You want to have your telephone number in the top right-hand corner of every page of your site. You always want them to be able to contact you right away. Do you have your phone number in the top right corner? Is there a web form that customers can fill out and easily access throughout the site? Are there authority symbols like BBB and Angie's List, etc.? Do you have any kind of awards that you can highlight? Is there any messaging chat that sort of pops up on the window via Facebook or whatnot where they can just message you and get a response right away? And there are ways to automate that too. I know one of the concerns there is, well, I can't sit by my computer all the time. So there are ways to automate that. Are there calls to action on each page that kind of speak to your customer avatar and based on the page tell them what they need to do next? And then are you leveraging your marketing automation and SMS to maximize your lead conversion rate? So if you don't have any kind of automation, if you don't have any sort of customer relationship management, CRM software in place, then you're absolutely leaving money on the table because leads are probably being missed somewhere along the way and definitely not being followed up with the way that they could or should be. So again, if you're watching this, it won't be live. So pause, pull your website up. You can kind of go back and I included a sheet there in the downloaded resources that you guys have with the checklist. Pull up that checklist, pull up your website, and do an audit. Do a quick audit of your website. How does it compare? Are there things that are critical that are not on your website? Do you have the calls to action everywhere? Is there compelling messaging that focuses really more on your avatar, on your prospect, than on you? Right? That's a big mistake that a lot of painters make is they focus on them. It's about your customer. Do you have your phone number in the top right of every page? Do you have photos of your team? Do you have videos kind of throughout the site? Do you have a way for someone to chat, to engage right away, a chat bot? Do you have a picture of your owner, and kind of maybe the story of the company? So I would do that and then keep going. Again, the more you lean into this, the more you participate, the more you're going to get out. If you just sort of sit and listen to this whole video, well, I appreciate you taking the time. Ultimately, you're not going to make the headway that you could. So we found that the biggest marketing issue, I know we've talked about employee issues and there are some other issues, but the biggest marketing issue, and therefore I think the biggest hindrance to growth for painting companies, is unconverted leads. And this comes back to someone called you and maybe you missed the call or no one was there to answer, or they filled out a web form and you didn't call back for a while. Or they call and you talk to them and they said, yeah, well, I'll think about it. Okay, well, hopefully they call back. And usually they're probably not going to. They might. But ultimately, that's a leaky bucket, right? So if you fill a bucket up with water and it doesn't have any holes in it, then you have a bucket full of water. But if you fill it up with water, it's got a bunch of little holes where this phone call wasn't answered, or I filled out the web form, but I didn't call back for an hour or 2 hours, I talked to them and they seemed like they were interested. I think they're going to move forward, but what's the follow-up process? Are you touching them over and over again? So the problem is we're finding 50 to 60% of inbound calls will ultimately leave unconverted. Will ultimately leave, and if you're offering a free estimate or anything like that, might not even make it to that point, right? Where there's I'll think about it. Thanks a lot. It's great learning more about your company. Or 90% of web forms fail to convert, and it doesn't have to be that way. But the issue with web forms a lot of times is the delay. The delay kills. So leads that are not followed up within 15 minutes go cold. And the average customer, if you think about this is kind of insane, but this is where the importance of some marketing automation comes into play. The average customer must be followed up with 5 to 7 times before booking. That's a lot. That's a lot of times, right? If you have one conversation with them, and then, I'll think about it, okay, and then maybe you call them up the next week. Have you thought about it, or have you spoken with your wife, or, whatever the kind of hesitation was. Well, that's 2 times, right? But if you have a CRM, a customer relationship management software, and you have email automation, well, now they're in your CRM. Now they're receiving text messages. Now they're receiving emails, and not in an obnoxious way, right? But just like, hey, I really enjoyed our conversation, and this isn't work that you have to do. This is done automatically. Really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks so much. for reaching out. I wanted to check in and see whether you were ready to move forward, or whether you had any questions, or whether you got your issue taken care of, in which case we'll leave you alone, right? And then today's consumer prefers to interact via text message versus phone or email. So kind of think, what's easier for you to kind of talk with people? Probably, text a lot of times, right? Like, we still like to pick up the phone sometimes. I know I do. But email is pretty inefficient. I'm not always checking my email, and so if it's something sort of a little more urgent, or I want to get done, email is not the best way. So it's really, prospects a lot of times prefer SMS, and that comes down to, you can't be sending text messages and having 20 reminders every day to follow up with different prospects that are different stages maybe of the buying journey. That's where that marketing automation comes into play, because you actually set up automated text messages that continue to follow up. So solution is leveraging your marketing automation to follow up with web forms within the first 2 minutes of submission via phone, email, and text message. So that's how you solve the web form issue. So if someone fills out your web form, you can actually have your CRM software call your office automatically, say, hey, Bob Jones, and this is a recording telling you, Bob Jones just filled out a web form, press 1 to be connected now. You press 1, ring, 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 Bob Jones picks up. Hey Bob, this is Brandon with Brandon's Painting. I noticed that you filled out our web form. I just wanted to touch base and talk about your needs. What can I help you with today? Right? You haven't even seen the web form, but now Bob Jones, wow, this company, I just filled it out. I kind of thought maybe they'd email me back over the next day or two, and they just called me right away. So the conversion rate of something like that is way higher. You can take it from being a 1 out of 10 conversion on web forms, and you can take it to a 9 out of 10. Right? So if you're converting 9 out of 10, now all of a sudden maybe, and they're the kinds of jobs that you're looking to get, you've positioned yourself as an authority, so you're getting those higher margin jobs. Now maybe that, I don't have enough employees. Maybe there's a way around that, right? Maybe you can grow the business even right now, right? And then automate the follow-up so that every prospect is touched 5+ times and able to engage via two-way text message. You make these automated messages, you make them personal. So they think that you're just texting them. And a lot of times they'll reply. And now you're engaging in dialogue with the prospect. Think about how many painting companies are doing that. Not many, right? You're typically, you maybe have one conversation, kind of how we talked about before. That's how it works, right? So if you're the company that's sort of coming back and doing it in a non-intrusive way, but doing it in a friendly, hopeful way, really prioritizing their needs, we want to make sure you got your needs taken care of. If not, we're here for a discussion. That's fantastic. Your conversion rates are going to go through, sort of through the roof. So for some simple math, let's say that you have 50 leads a month coming through, and that your conversion rate is 25%, which is a low conversion rate, right? So you have a 25% conversion rate. Well, then you're going to book technically 12.5, but I said 12 jobs to kind of keep the math simple. Because 50 leads times 25% is 12 booked jobs. Let's say your average ticket value, again, we're just going with the $5,000 for now, $5,000. That puts you at $60,000 per month. 12 jobs times $5,000 a month is $60,000 a month. So for some of you guys, it might be, that might be a big step up, right? But kind of focus more on the company where maybe that wouldn't be a big step up. So let's say that you get this marketing automation in place. Let's say you take the web form conversions from being 1 out of 10 to being 9 out of 10, and that you're really you're personally connecting with these prospects. You have messaging that works. Well, now you have the same 50 leads. Ultimately, you want to increase your number of leads as well. But let's say you have the same 50 leads. You have now a 70% conversion rate with your automated follow-up. Well, your jobs booked went from 12 to 35. Assuming an average ticket value still of $5,000, well, you just went from a month of $60,000 to a month of $175,000. That's the kind of power of automation. That's the power of setting up the right systems to make sure that you're engaging with prospects in a timely fashion and that you're personally connecting with them. without crushing you, without you feeling that you need to hire more people to handle this messaging, or that you as the owner need to be glued to your cell phone or computer all the time. And it makes every lead that you generate more valuable, right? So there's the number of leads that you get and the quality of leads, and then there's your ability to respond to those leads. So the same lead that comes in becomes far more quality if you respond right away and if you follow up automatically 5+ times, because that lead is now far more likely to convert, just automatically. So every lead you get, regardless of the kind of lead, is now more valuable. So you factor in that with a holistic marketing plan and increasing your number of leads, you kind of see where this starts to really add up, right? So action items. Pause the video. If when you're watching this, which 3 conversion elements that you don't have right now are you going to implement on your website? Right? Do you have web forms easily accessible everywhere? Do you have your phone number everywhere? Do you have the clear calls to action? Right? Do you have the messaging chat? What are you going to put on your website right now? All right. Okay, so kind of the third section of this video is know and track your KPIs. We've sort of touched on it briefly before. Your key performance indicators. You really need to have a fundamental understanding of how many leads are you getting, where are you getting them from, how many are converting based on the channel that you're getting them from. So for example, you had 20 leads last week or last month that came through Facebook. Well, how many did you convert through Facebook? And maybe you had 30 leads that came through Google. Well, how many did you convert of those 30 versus how many did you convert of those 20 for Facebook? Because if you converted 18 out of 20 for Facebook at an average ticket value of $5,000 and you converted 5 out of 30 from Google, an average ticket value of $5,000, you can see that even though Google's giving you more leads, there's a real problem with the conversion, right? So you have to track all of these different KPIs. And you need to have a clear goal and target for 2021, clarity around your marketing, your messaging, and your media, how you're reaching out to your market. Make sure that the website is optimized for conversion and that you have a KPI, some sort of KPI tracking mechanisms in place. Some sort of tracking. If you're running Google ads, you need to know how much you've spent on the ads. You need to know how many leads came through and then how many converted and what dollar value you got from those conversions. Same for Facebook ads, same for your SEO investment, right? If you've spent, let's say, $20,000 so far to a company to optimize your website to get you high up on Google, well, how many leads have you gotten from that? How many people have called you through because they just Googled it and found you? And you can track that, and you need to track that, right? If you're investing in that kind of stuff, you need to know what your ROI is. So key trends for 2021 is there's been a big shift from a phone conversation where everyone picks up the phone or wants to have a long dialogue voice conversation to messaging. People now prefer messaging, so it needs to be a part of your strategy, part of your conversion strategy, part of the way that you interact with your prospects. Google local service ads. So this rolled out, I think originally in 2019. It's grown. For painters, it's not a big thing yet, but I did want to touch on it because I think it might become a bigger thing, right? So it's not a huge thing for painters at this point, but it is a key trend to be on the lookout for is Google local service ads, and then needing to have an all-in perspective. So again, kind of going back to those fishing lines, right? And then kind of 2 ways to think about this of having an all-in perspective regarding your marketing is fishing lines, because you're going to get different customers different ways. And then also the average customer needs to be touched by you 5+ times. So that's where retargeting in particular, retargeting ads really are helpful. But you want them to see you on Facebook. You want them to see you on Google. You want them to see you in their email, right? In their mail. You want to be on their mind. So Google local services, I'll touch on it quickly. Just kind of, again, it's not the biggest, most important thing right now for painters, but Google local services is essentially a service where you can apply through Google. They do a background check and they essentially vet your company, and they will offer, if for prospects, for your customers who book through a Google local service ad, you advertise and you kind of pay per lead, similar to other services. But for a customer that books through Google local services, Google will basically guarantee that customer up to, I think it's $2,000. So essentially, they'll say, well, we vetted this painter, we vetted him, his company, we made sure he has insurance, we made sure that he or she, we did a background check, not like a wanted felon or something, and did a background check on the team, and we think this is a very quality company, and we're willing to give them the Google guarantee. Right, so this is kind of what it looks like. You'll see that it says Google guaranteed. It's definitely more prevalent in some other industries right now than painting, but it's still somewhat in painting. This is a search for Tampa painter. You can see 5 Star Painting has a Google guarantee here, the local service ad. So the Google guarantee, again, essentially means that they'll reimburse the customer up to $2,000, and it's a way for the customer, your prospect, to kind of de-risk their painter selection or whatever, who they're selecting. And Google is using a Google track number so that they actually know, if it's coming through a local service ad, so that they actually can monitor that, right, and make sure that they're honoring their guarantees, because that's one of the requirements, is that go through a local service ad. In order to get this running, again, I don't think it's super open for painters at this point, but ultimately you have to complete the Google Local Services application. Google will run a background check on you and your employees. They'll do a license check, background by Pinkerton Consulting, I believe is who they use. Make sure you have insurance, liability insurance, etc. And then the business owners and all the painters have to undergo the background check. And then once approved and if active in your area, you essentially pay on a per lead basis. And ultimately, we've seen the cost, per booked a job be anywhere in the kind of $25 to $45 or so dollars. But the price will vary by kind of city and industry, and it's a very fluid situation right now with Google local service ads. Some feedback the feedback overall has been positive from people who have participated in it. It's been a lower cost than per lead than the pay-per-click, higher quality leads than some other pay-per-lead options. Still get some price shoppers, and so that comes down to where, especially with price shoppers, if you want that business where you have to respond really quickly to get them. And then for most of the people who have tried it, there's been a pretty solid ROI. So to kind of move forward with that, you can visit this link and sign up and complete your background checks, and ultimately get the tracking in place to gauge ROI and make sure you're leveraging the platform to close the jobs, and that you use it as long as the ROI makes sense. As soon as the ROI is not making sense, if it kind of becomes more widespread, it might become more expensive. That's what happened with pay-per-click. Pay-per-click does make sense, but it used to be free money. I mean, it was unbelievable how cheap it was. So local service ads could also increase in expense. Okay, and then kind of the last section here is build, sort of wrapping up, build your 2021 plan. So, looking at this digital dominance method, for painters, again, what are you missing in this wheelhouse? What do you not have? Focusing, number one, being the most important, and kind of down the line, right, and kind of least important. It's not exactly that for every painter, but roughly speaking, the website is definitely the website, and the SEO is the core. It is the hub it is the way that you become a 100-pound gorilla in your local service area. And then other methodologies kind of supplement that and can be more immediate in your results. Do you have the website that's built to convert, right? Do you have proactive SEO that's working, that's driving high-quality leads to your website? Is your Google Maps optimized? So Google Maps is very important. Are you showing up in the 3-pack on the search? So probably 40 to 50% of the people who visit your website are going to come from mobile. So are you showing up when people are searching on their mobile? And that's where your website has to be mobile optimized. Your GMB has to be optimized, etc. Do you have a strategic pay-per-click campaign running? and are you doing it the right way? Do you have your social presence and email marketing? And then are you tracking and measuring your KPIs? Get a little more water. So you want to use a holistic approach to obtain the most truly effective marketing. Again, we have this checklist for you. Make sure you download it if you haven't already done so, and make sure you check it out. And again, bring up the checklist, bring up your website, and see what's there and what's not, right? Is there a disconnect somewhere? And ultimately building that custom plan. So, action items. What are, from everything we've covered, kind of hit pause and think, we've talked about quite a few things at this point. What are your top 3 marketing initiatives that you need to implement to hit the rest of your 2021 goal? Okay, what are kind of focused first and foremost probably on the website, but of all the things that we've talked about, what do you think that your business in particular needs to implement to get to the goal, again, the clearly written down goals that you want to accomplish? And this is stuff too that would be great to bring to the workshop. All right, so what we've covered set goals for 2021, the rest of 2021, and how many leads you need to hit your targets, the 3 fundamentals of marketing success. So who you're marketing to, your customer avatar, what you're marketing to them, what's your messaging, what resonates with your customer avatar, and then how are you reaching them, right? And what media are you using? We've talked about how to optimize your website for conversion in 2021 and beyond, the importance of messaging. We've talked about the big picture of all the online marketing channels you should be tapping in to maximize your lead flow online. Again, having all those different fishing lines, making sure you're touching people from various ways to remain top of mind. Talked about the latest trends that you need to be aware of in 2021. And then you hopefully, in the workshop, we can dive into this more together, have developed somewhat, again, use the workbook of a custom action plan based on where you are now and ultimately where you need to go, right? Because that's ultimately been our goal. And again, the goal of this series is learn. So you learn, I teach you this stuff, but then ultimately you need to do it, right? And whether that's you do it yourself, whether someone on your team does it, whether you hire someone, we obviously specialize in all of this stuff, and then ultimately you want to grow, right? And so this series is really geared towards companies that are trying to grow and that have moderate to aggressive growth plans. So it has been a great first video. I'm very excited for the workshop. You can always give me a call, 1-888-100-813-4385. And you can also go to paintermarketingpros.com and check us out and schedule there if you want to have a conversation before the workshop. But very much looking forward to connecting, and thank you for your time and for watching the whole video.